Hello everyone, so we are from Group Assessing Reading Part 1, and so today we are going to present about assessing reading. So before that, I would like to introduce the members. So the members are me as Frederica, and then Susana Loto, and also Romo Sace. So happy watching! First, what is the definition of reading? Reading is defined as a cognitive process that involves decoding symbols to arrive at meaning. As you can see on the screen, reading is an active process of constructing the meaning of words. And also, reading with a purpose helps the reader to direct information towards a goal. So next, talking about types or genre of reading. First, academic reading. As you can see on the screen, there are general interest articles like magazines, newspaper, and then technical reports. For example, like reports and the professional journal articles, and then reference material like dictionaries and then textbooks, theses, essays, papers, test directions, editorials, and opinion writing. Second, about job-related reading. There are a lot of jobs that are related to reading. There are messages, for example, phone messages, and then letters or emails, and then memos, for example, interviews, and then reports, for example, job evaluations, project reports, and also schedules, labels, signs, announcements, and then forms, applications, questionnaires, financial documents, for example like bills, invoices, and then directories like telephone, office, and manuals and directions. Next, about personal reading. There are newspapers and magazines, letters, emails, greeting cards, invitations, messages, notes, lists, schedules, for example like train, bus, plan, and then recipes, menus, maps, calendar, advertisement, for example like commercials, and then one ads, novels, short stories, jokes, drama, and poetry. Financial documents, for example like checks, tax forms, loan applications, and then forms, questionnaires, medical reports, immigration documents, comic strips, and cartoons. About micro skills, there are first, discriminate among the distinctive graphemes and orthographic patterns of English. And then second, retain chunks of language of different lengths in short-term memory. And third, process writing at an efficient rate of speed to suit the purpose. Recognize cohesive devices in written discourse and their role in signaling the relationship between and among clauses. And the next, recognize a core of words, interpret word order patterns and their significance. And recognize grammatical word classes like nouns, verbs, and then the system, for example like tense, agreement, pluralizations, and then patterns, rules, and article forms. And the last, recognize that a particular meaning may be expressed in different grammatical forms. Skills, they are first, recognize the rhetorical forms of written discourse and their significance for interpretation. And then second, recognize the communicative functions of written text according to form and purpose. And third, infer context that is not explicit by using background knowledge. And then fourth, describe events, ideas, and so on, like even links and connections between events, deduce causes and effects, and detect such relations as main idea, supporting idea, new information, given information, generalization, exemplification. Fifth, distinguish between literal and implied meanings. And then next, detect culturally specific references and interpret them in the context of the appropriate cultural schemata. And then seventh, develop and use a battery of reading strategies such as scanning and skimming, detecting discourse markers, guessing the meaning of words from context, and activating schemata for the interpretation of text. Strategies for reading comprehension. There are first, identify your purpose in reading a text, and then second, apply spelling rules and conventions for bottom-up decoding, and then third, use lexical analysis like prefixes, roots, suffixes, and so on to determine meaning, and then fourth, guess at meaning of words, idioms, and when you are current, and then fifth, skim the text for the gist and for main ideas. Scan the text for specific information like names, dates, keywords, and then next, use silent reading techniques for rapid processing. And use marginal notes, outline, charts, or semantic maps for understanding and retaining information. And distinguish between literal and implied meanings. The last, capitalize on discourse markers to process relationships. So next, my friend will help you to understand and know more about assessing reading.
Types of reading. Consider to assessment procedures, there are several types of reading. Performance are typically identified and will serve as organizer of various assessment tasks. The first types of reading is perspective reading. In this category has a similarity specification with listening comprehension, except differing terminology to capture the uniqueness of reading. Reading perspective tasks involve attending to the components of larger stretches of discourse like letter, words, punctuation, etc. And reading perspective use bottom-up process. The second types of reading is selective reading. Selective reading is artifact to assessment formats, and the function of selective reading is to ascertain one's reading recognition of lexical, grammatical, or discourse feature of language within a very short stretch language. The typical tasks in selective reading is like feature cue tasks, matching, true or false, and multiple choice. The stimuli using in selective reading is sentences, brief paragraph, and simple charts and graph. And selective reading use a combination of bottom-up and top-down processing. The next types of reading is interactive reading. Interactive reading is a stretch of language from a few paragraphs to one or more pages, where the reader must, in the psycholinguistic sense, interact with the text. Interact with the text means the reading process of negotiating two means. The reader brings to the text a set of schemata for understanding it, and intake is the product of that interaction. The typical genre of interactive reading like anecdotes, short narrative, description, memos, announcement, direction, receipts, and etc. The focus of interactive tasks is to identify relevant features like lexical, symbolic, grammatical, and discourse within text of the moderately short length with the objective of retaining the information that is processed. In interactive reading, they use top-down processing. It's typical of such tasks, although some intentions of bottom-up performance may be necessary. The next types of reading is extensive reading. Extensive reading applies to texts of more than a page, up to and including professional articles, essays, technical reports, short stories, and books. The purposes of assessment usually are to tap into a learner's global understanding of a text, as opposed to asking text takers to zoom in on small details. Extensive reading uses top-down process for most extensive tasks. And in this table, you can see there are 4 types of readings, and by the length, process, and focus may be used. Now we will take a look on designing assessment tasks from perspective reading. Tasks of perception are often referred to as literacy tasks, implying that the learner is in the early stages of becoming literate. Assessment of literacy is not easy assignment. Assessment of basic reading skills may be carried out in this number of different ways. The first way is reading aloud. The test taker sees separate letters, words, and or short sentences and reads them aloud one by one in the presence of an administrator or audience. Assessment reading comprehension any reasonable oral exposition of the target response is considered correct. The second way is written response. The test taker's task is to reproduce the probe in writing. Evaluation of the test taker's response must be carefully treated. If an error occurs, make sure you determine its source. What may be assumed to be a writing error, for example, may be a reading error, and vice versa. The next way is multiple choice. Multiple choice responses are not only a matter of choosing one or four or five possible answers. Other formats, or some of which are especially useful at the low levels of reading. For example, you can see in this picture, there are two other formats of choosing one or two or five possible answers. You may be use a minimal pair or grab recognition tasks. You can see from this sample. For the next ways is picture cue items. The takers are shown a picture such as the one on the next page, along with a written text, and are given one of several possible tasks to perform. From the above explanation, you can see in this picture, the test taker are shown a picture such as this picture with a written text and are given one of several possible tasks to perform. Like in this picture, you can press any items and you can see the written text in the box like cat, clock, and chair. You have seen that the picture before? Okay, the test taker might read sentences and the point on the part of the picture, like in this example. The man is reading a book and the cat is under the table, like we see in the picture before the slide. In this slide, you will see another form of question based on the picture. Yeah, true or false. This true or false form is from verbal to a non-verbal mode. You just circle true or false based on the statement that the question, like number one, the pencil are under the table, true or false? Yeah, exactly false. Yeah, you just circle the answer F. Okay, in this slide, you will see the matching ways. Matching can be an effective method of assessing reading at this level with objects labeled A, B, C, D, and E in the picture. Yeah, for example, you give a label A for a clock and chair, and label B to chair and books C, and the next one is cat, label D, etc. The test taker reads words and writes the appropriate letter beside two words. You can see the example in this picture. Okay, the next phase example of matching is the test takers might see a word or phrase and then be directed to choose one or four pictures that are being described, thus requiring the test taker to transfer from a verbal to a non-verbal mode. For example, in this picture, you can see the test taker read rectangle and the test takers see and choose the correct items. There is an A, B, C, or D.
And the next is designing assessment task selective reading. So this category includes many correctly think of as testing vocabulary and grammar. These are possible tasks you can use to access lexical and grammatical aspects of reading ability. So the first type in designing assessment selective reading is multiple choice for form-focused criteria. The advantages of this test is first, it is easy to administer and can be scored quickly. The most straightforward multiple choice items may have a little context but might serve as a vocabulary or grammar check. And then you can see here the example of multiple choice from number 1 to number 4, and then the third one, number 21 to 26. And the second type of test is matching test. The advantages of this test is offering an alternative to traditional multiple choice or fill in the blank formats and easier to construct than multiple choice items if the test designer has chosen the matches carefully. And then disadvantages of this test is they can become more of a puzzle solving process than a genuine test of comprehension, as test takers struggle with the search for a match, possibly among 10 or 20 different items. And you can see the example of this matching task. And then the third test is editing task. So for grammatical or rhetorical errors, it's a widely used test method for assessing linguistic competence in reading. And for example, TOEFL test, etc. And this task is not only focused on grammar but also introduce a stimulation of the authentic task of editing or discerning errors in written passage. And you can see also the example of this test, this editing task test. And next, the fourth is picture cue task. So several types of picture cue methods are commonly used. First, test takers read a sentence or passage and choose one of 4 pictures that is being described. The sentence or sentences at this level is more complex. And the second, the test takers read a series of sentences or definitions, each describing a labeled part of picture or diagram. And their task is to identify each labeled item in the following diagram. And test takers do not necessarily know each term, but by reading the definition, they are able to make an identification. So you guys can see also the type of test. The next test is gap filling task. So many of the multiple choice tasks described above can be converted into gap filling or fill in the blank attempts in which the test taker's response is to write a word or phrase. And again, here is the example of the gap filling. disadvantages of this test is first, it's questionable assessment of reading ability. Second, the task requires both reading and writing performance, thereby rendering it low validity in isolating reading as the sole criterion. The third, scoring the variety of creative responses that are likely to appear. So, everyone, that's all our presentation. The next material will be explained by Aves Group. So, thank you for your attention and thanks for watching.